Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk. My topic is not on there. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Lisa.
How is your day?
I'm having a great day. How are you? How is your day?
My day's good. It's the day after the Halloween that we're recording this.
Yep.
And I have a belly full of candy. I have a butt in the front. It's my gut. My gut's my butt in the front.
Oh my gosh, that visual of a butt in the front is...
That's what it feels like.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I ate candy too last night. And pho. Candy and pho, that's weird.
What it is about... I don't know. It's because it's all of this candy and it's free candy.
Yep.
And somehow my mind goes blank, and then I convince myself that this free candy is calorie-free candy, and so I could just eat as much as I want.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't ever have this much candy and much to choose from at my disposal at any time, so I'm just going to have a free-for-all.
But isn't that funny? Because we're adults. We can go buy candy anytime we want.
Yeah, sometimes I'm an adult.
But then I convince myself that I don't need it. But when it's all
and then I convince
there,
myself I don't. I'll go through the candy aisle these days. I'll be like, no, not today.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll pick it up and walk around with it and then put it back.
And then you put it back. Do you actually put it back where it belongs, or are you one of those people that sometimes will slip it in with the ramen noodles?
You know what? Sometimes I do that.
Does it kind of make you laugh? And
it
you're
does,
like, run?
But sometimes I feel so... Oh, yeah. And then you stare down and you're like peeking down the aisles. Is anybody watching? Is anybody watching? And like try to do it real fast.
You know who's watching? Marty the robot.
Marty the robot is. You know they see that. I wonder what kind of stuff they see on those cameras.
Oh, my God. I
bet they see some crazy stuff. I mean, how many times have you picked your butt or picked your nose?
I'd moon Marty. I'd moon Marty.
You mooned Marty?
I would.
Oh.
I would.
I thought you
now
said
that I know
did.
what he's all about.
I bet all kinds of stuff happens all the time, though.
It does. I mean, I bet it does. I'm like, it does. I know it does.
What if you mooned him, though, and then the next thing you know, you turn into a meme, and then you're all over the internet.
A Marty.
And then my sons will be like, did you see this new meme?
I don't want to be a meme.
And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's Corey's butt.
At least it's not in the front.
It's not your front butt.
Wouldn't be in the front.
I'd almost rather somebody see my butt than my gut. I don't know. That's what your gut is. It's the front butt.
I don't know how to respond to that.
You can respond by schooling me on your badass woman. How about that?
Okay, my badass woman. My baddest woman is Mary Rippon. Mary Rippon was the first woman to teach at a state university, as well as the first female professor at the one and only University of Boulder, Colorado,
Woo-hoo!
right down the street from us here in Louisville. Rippon began teaching French and German at CU in 1878. She became head of Germanic languages and literature and served at the university until 1909.
Manic languages?
Germanic.
Okay.
Germanic. It's, I assume, German, but I don't know what Germanic means. English. Oh, it's just English?
It's just English? Oh.
European language.
Wow. All right.
Interesting. And Mary Rippon Outdoor Theater. So over there, I don't know if you've ever driven by and you've seen the big banner for No Honking Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
You've seen that, right? So the Colorado Shakespeare Festival,
Shakespeare,
to be or not to be.
The to be or not to be festival.
Hamlet, Macbeth, Colorado Shakespeare Festival is named in her honor because they hold it in the Mary Rippon Outdoor Theater.
Is that what that theater is called?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yep, and it's because she was the first woman to ever teach there at CU. So I thought that was pretty interesting, considering that's right down the street. This is back in the late 1800s, and she's pretty badass. Be the first teacher. She was born in Illinois originally, and she first taught German at a high school in Detroit.
That's awesome. I'm pulling her up here. I see she's got some badass curls going on in her hair.
And she was the first president of the newly established University of Colorado, it even says. She joined the University of Colorado faculty in January 1878. She taught German and French. We already learned about that. And mathematics and English as well. Oh, check this out. She became head of the Department of Modern Languages. And then she retired from teaching in 1909.
Awesome. Well,
So,
she's
yeah.
pretty badass.
She got
You got all this from
married.
Wikipedia?
Yep, this is all Wikipedia.
Isn't that the greatest source? We should all donate. Do you donate to Wikipedia?
I have.
We'll give a shout out to it, is that people should donate to it, because that's where I get half of my knowledge from.
Yeah, Wikipedia.
Not the
They're
most
pretty
reliable source
fantastic.
always, but it's pretty good.
It is very good. How do we get on Wikipedia? Any idea?
I don't know. I guess we can create our own page.
Travis is going to put us on Wikipedia. We
Uh-huh.
should. Her turn to talk.
Wikipedia, her turn to
Established
talk.
in 2019
Twenty
in
nineteen.
Louisville, Colorado.
Yep. Rate, review, subscribe.
Will it say
Tell
like
your friends.
will it say like Lisa married to? And then I always like seeing how many times people have been married and divorced.
Well, then you'd have my dad on. Did you know I didn't tell you in that one episode? His mom, it runs in the family. I broke it. It just stopped. But my dad's mom was also actually married 9 times. 6 men. 3 of those men she got to marry twice.
No wonder
twice.
your dad
So
does
9
what he
times.
does.
Yeah, he's just a ladies' man, I guess.
Well, if his mom was doing it, then that's
Yeah, I know.
just doesn't know anything
Anyways,
else.
I thought that was fun. I forgot to tell
sounds
you about
exciting, really.
that. Who are we going to talk to today, Corey?
Today on the show, we're interviewing Kristine Lackey. And she's just down the road in the opposite direction of CU Boulder in Lafayette, Colorado. Kristine is a psychological counselor.
Psychological coach.
A psychological coach. I'm sorry, that is correct. A psychological coach and has a history in doing the journey. So without further ado, let's bring Kristine on the show. Welcome, Kristine.
Hi, thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, we're very excited. We both have looked at your website and just kind of dug into what you do a little bit, and we're super interested in learning more about you and what you do. It sounds like you're doing some pretty awesome work.
I am, and I have 2 websites. So one is sort of like my day job, and the other is sort of like my fun job.
That's right. And it's the Untangled Mom.
I have the KristineLackey.com, which is basically what I do on an everyday, my everyday job. And the Untangled Mom is my passion because I am a mom of a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. And my boyfriend has a 4-year-old.
Oh, well.
So that brings in a whole new blend. But parenting is my thing. I love it.
And I did watch, I can't remember if this is actually on your website or I watched a couple of YouTube videos. But you said, Untangled Mom is not necessarily just for moms. It can be for all parents, but it's more describing you and how you had to become untangled.
Yep.
Like, what was that? How did that process work for you and coming up with that name, and what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm an older mom. So I had my first child at 38 and my second at 42, it's older. And I'm grateful all the time that for me in my life that I waited. I don't even want to say waited. I didn't have a choice. It's just the way my life unfolded. But I had a lot of shit to work through before being a mom. And I think about if I hadn't, I wonder what would have happened with the way my kids were brought up. I'm very fortunate in the work that I have done. I've worked with thousands of people from all walks of life with so many different issues. And predominantly, the same stuff comes up all the time of when they were kids and they didn't feel seen and they didn't feel heard and they didn't feel accepted and the impact that it has had on them. And I'm helping adults every day unwind that. So Untangled sort of comes from, I help people unwind that and untangle it every day to go back and resource what they were missing when they were younger. And again, the stories are all the same. And what we all were needing and we didn't get, it's just so impactful. So for me, with my kids, I tried to bring in so much of what I learned from adults and be like, oh, shoot, if I were to treat my children this way, the way this person was needing to be treated, if I can bring my child up the way I wish I was brought up, what would I offer them in this moment? And it's vastly different. And, I have to say, it's interesting timing because my household was pretty tough. My mom was incredibly controlling woman. Like it was hard. Nothing I did was ever right. I couldn't even say I loved the color blue because she would tell me I was wrong. And that evolved.
Were you an only child?
Nope. I had an older brother, 4 years older, but he left when I was younger and lived with my dad. But it was hard. And the way that I was brought up in that way turned into an eating disorder when I got older. So I had to work through that kind of stuff. And what's really cool is where my mom and I are today, because we're in this really amazing place. And we're in a really amazing place because of the work that I did. And that the way that I got centered more in me and clear with me and owned my own shit and taken responsibility for it too, it allowed the pathway for my mom and I to have a new friendship and relationship. And it allowed for her too to be like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And I don't even know why I'm doing that. And she just sent me, I'm so off on a tangent right now because this just came up yesterday and it was so cool. My mom sent me this article. And it was on parenting about like, have fun in your home. Make sure it's a little messy. Don't keep it too clean. The perfectionism doesn't allow your children to be. And she sends me this article, and I'm like, damn, like, Mom, thanks. I'm so proud of you. And she goes, no, I'm really proud of you because you broke a pattern. You broke a generational pattern that I couldn't break myself. I didn't even see it to know to break it. But you broke a pattern, and I'm really proud of you and how differently you're raising your children today, because who your children are is such a reflection of you. And I said, Mom, this isn't a dig, and please don't hear it this way. But sometimes I do wonder, like, who would I be today if I had been brought up differently? And she was like, I don't take it as a dig because it's the truth. And sometimes I wonder who I would be too if I had been raised differently. So it's just
that's how she did. Was her mother controlling as well? Is that where she learned that, or
yeah?
Or was
her
it
background was interesting.
Okay,
it was just an interesting background all the way around, And I don't know if that was a generational thing, the way they were brought up back then. Children are to be seen and not heard, kind of thing. But that's what Untangled Mom is for me. Is not only untangling our own shit, but cutting those ties to generational beliefs and behaviors that are just unconsciously passed down all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, and from you talking about you didn't have kids until you took care of your own shit. You figured out your own shit. You took care of yourself, from your relationship to your mom, just changing and evolving, and now this relationship you have now, and this idea of this untangle. I can relate with all of that. I'm sitting here and I'm like, yes, that's me. Oh my God, that's my story too. That's how I feel. And to hear you talk about I'm just like, the kids say, I feel the same way. I'm like, now's not the time. But I have this idea that later on, I think that's what I want. But I want to do it after I've taken care of my shit and like figuring it all out. And here you are sitting in front of me. I'm like, wow, so this is what it could look like. And my relationship with my mother has gotten a lot better as I'm starting to fix things within myself.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you, and you're saying your mother is speaking to you in this different way, that she can own her stuff as well. And what an amazing thing to see. Whoa, this is where I could be. And maybe other listeners here, I can relate too. So this is really interesting and fascinating.
It was, for my mom and I, it was really interesting one day after doing so my background is psychology. So I have an undergrad and a master's in psychology. I was going on for a PhD, living in California, working with girls on the street up in Hollywood. And that was an eye-opener. It really was. Mainly because a lot of the therapists there were all like talking about how broken these girls are. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, they're not. Like they're not. They're young women who've been through a lot, and they just need love. And it just became so apparent to me how so many of our behaviors are driven by the same exact thing, and that is to be loved. period. And no matter what the behavior is, no matter how it unfolds, no matter how pretty or ugly it is, it's driven from the same exact thing. It just is. Just somebody love me, somebody see me. I need to connect in whatever way possible. And I was on my way to PhD program when I was just like, this path isn't my path. And psychology is wonderful. Diagnosis is wonderful when it's needed. It just wasn't my path. So I took a left turn and I started studying with different types of teachers. And these teachers looked more into, let's go deeper. Instead of talking about what's going on, let's find out, well, where did this get crystallized in your being? Like, when did you start to shut down? And what happened at that time? And what were the emotions that you were feeling at that time? And if you couldn't push them away any longer, what's really there? Because we're taught to push our emotions down and not feel them. It's not okay. Yeah. But your emotions are the gateway to your health and to connecting with others. And I'm telling the story for a reason. And I ended up working with this one woman. Her name is Brandon Bays, and we did the journey work together. I represented her work here in North America for about 10 years. And I will never forget talking to her one day. And I said, so when do you know you're done? She goes, done with what? I'm like, when do we know that we're done with
when you're all grown
with this stuff? She goes, what stuff? I'm like, like all this shit. We're pulling back the emotions and we're looking at this and we're looking like, when do you know you're done? She goes, oh, when you're done. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, it never ends.
There's no end goal.
There's no end goal.
Because life keeps happening, right?
Because life keeps happening. Yeah. And as life happens, all of a sudden you might feel something different than you did yesterday.
Yeah.
Or you might get a little bit depressed in a different way. And to me, when these new emotions might start showing up because of a new situation, it's just your body's way of saying, hello, there's something else here. Can we look at this, please? And if you choose not to, no problem. I'm just going to make your ass sick. So it's your choice,
And it's true. Mm-hmm. That's what happens.
It's what happens.
You mentioned the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little more about that?
Yep. The journey is an international, I would say, methodology of healing. And it was based on one woman's healing story where she was able to heal from a tumor the size of a small basketball without surgery. And essentially what she did was she accessed a crystallizing moment in her life that she had done a ton of therapy on and a ton of work on. But she realized that she had accepted what had happened to her, but she had never forgiven it. And the way that she was able to naturally get to forgiveness is the way that we all naturally get to forgiveness, is through feeling all the emotions around what happened and putting words to how it made her feel at the time, saying what couldn't be said, saying what must be said, and just going through a complete emptying out process until she got to a point of like, oh, this wasn't personal. This wasn't even personal. I can totally forgive this because it really didn't have anything to do with me. And the tumor started to just shrink and go away on its own. So because of that healing process that she went through, obviously people were like, how'd you do it? And she wrote down in form different processes on how to access these crystallizing moments.
By yourself.
Yeah. Well, her background, she worked with Tony Robbins in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Big
Tony
time.
Robbins.
So she was like his emotional and meditative and organic eating side of things for him. So she had, that was a thing for her when she got the tumor. She's like, this is impossible that I'm sick. Like, it's impossible because I do this stuff all the time. But she was, because there was just something that she wasn't looking at. And no matter how great we are at being truthful and present, we don't see it. We don't see our stuff all the time. We just don't.
Yeah.
So I represented her work. And that was a trip.
Yeah.
It's beautiful work. It's what my private practice is based on today.
And now you do it with other people. Like it's a kind of a coaching, the journey's a coached, it's not a program. It's
the journey itself does have a program.
Oh, it does. Okay.
That I no longer am a part of. So that was my business representing that for a long time. But that business and relationship ended probably about, want to say 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, my kids were younger and I focused on my kids for a long time. And then I started more of a private practice. And now that's more of my one-on-one work. I do the journey work. I do some coaching stuff. I do some attachment work.
What's attachment?
What's that?
Which attachment is I just love attachment. It's essentially looking at your relationship with your primary caregivers when you were first born.
So it's not attachment parenting.
No.
Is it? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And a little bit, they parallel each other. Like how did you relate to your parents? How did they relate to you? What was your perception? Were they there for you? Were they not there for you? And that's how you learned your pattern of relationship. It just is.
Right.
And when we can look at that, it's mind blowing because you can go, now I can see why I do what I do.
And you work with couples with this attachment work, and you work with people separately.
Yes.
Cool.
It's fun.
Because I've had some experience with this with someone that Travis and I are working with. And it is, you're right, it's mind-blowing.
It's
I didn't
mind-blowing.
realize it was called, that's what it is. It's called attachment work. I
Yes.
forgot. And so that's what you do.
So it's learning
cool.
how the past affects you now. Is that what it is?
It's learning the relationship pattern that you learned as a child and how it's playing out today. Okay. So some people do push pull. They'll go towards you and then they leave, and they go towards you and then they leave, and it can drive the other person crazy. And another person can be like, I need to leave. I need to check out. And please don't ask me to do much. Well, then it can drive the other person crazy. If you guys don't understand why and where it's coming from, again, it's like, oh, it's personal. That person's leaving me.
Right.
Oh, that person's doing this.
Learning your own manual, your life manual.
Yes.
And that's what Travis and I'm learning. I want to become an expert on his manual.
Yes.
And and he's working on I'm learning to become an expert in my manual of living. And this is where it all stems back from.
And I love hearing you say that and I seriously love hearing you say that. So often, especially in the spiritual world these days, it's just like, oh, this is my stuff and that's your stuff and you can't make me feel anything. And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah, somebody can make you feel something. They can, because we are born to be in relationship, period.
Oh, I'm really excited. I didn't
Period.
realize that this is what your focus is.
And here's the thing with the journey. Part of the reasons why I sort of pulled away and doing a little bit more of my own stuff is the journey very much is into this, go into your stuff, you're responsible, and nobody can make you feel anything. Right. And I'm like, I don't live in a cave, and I'm not meditating 24 hours a day. Right. I live in the concept of we. I can see how my energy, my emotions, whether I am expressing them or not, are affecting my children. So I'm affecting my children with how I'm feeling, right? So no, there's a lot more we-ness that is more of my focus. That's my passion, right? So what I see happen a lot of times with people, individuals and couples, it's like, that's your shit, so you go deal with that. You know what? You know what the therapist said yesterday? That there's that thing you're doing, so go deal with it. And I'm like, hold on. Mm-hmm. Because if you can start hearing what your partner does and why, where does this come from? And what need is wanting to be met here? Yes, that person has the responsibility of looking at it for themselves. Absolutely. And with compassion and love and connection, you can meet them in it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've chose to be in this relationship, so now you're in a partnership.
Yeah.
So isn't that part of the partnership is that you're going to work together and in all levels, emotional, mental, all physical, all of those things.
You'd hope
right?
so. But that's the goal, right? It's confusing. Yeah. It's really confusing.
You can now give your partner something that they never had before, that maybe they were lacking when they were younger. And then that perspective shifts into, wow, I'll look at Travis, I'll be like, oh yeah, that happened with him. He was left alone or something like that. And he was, someone only went to him when they needed something.
Right.
And now I can go to him and say, hey, how you doing? Instead of just barging in or something like that. And because there would be a reaction when someone just barged in. And so I can give him the space. I can this loving compassion. It's just really interesting. I hope that makes sense.
It's the best. It just really, it's lovely. And
Strongly recommend it.
It's like my boyfriend recently, he says to me, he's like, you just always look miserable. I'm like, what? And he goes, you just look miserable all the time. I'm like, see the face that you're making? And I guess that's the face that and I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, look at the look on your face. And I'm like, and this was the look that was on my face. And those of you who can't see my face, it's that look of like your crunched up eyebrows and your mouth is skewed. And I was like, oh, that's my thinking face. And he's like, what? And I'm like, that's my thinking face. And he goes, do you know you have your thinking face on all the time? And I'm like, I do? And he says, yes. And I'm like, well, how does it make you feel? He's like I'm doing something wrong. And I was like, oh. Now, am I going to change my thinking face? Maybe. Maybe. The more that there's another teacher of mine that I adore his work. His name is Terry Real. He does a lot of relationship stuff too. And he always says, if you can name it, you can tame it. And I believe it completely. So now I have the opportunity to start thinking about the faces that I'm making. Like, do I have that thinking? And I can also say, hey, look, when you see that face, can you bring it to my awareness? Because I don't know I'm doing it. And it's just because I'm thinking, and so that's relationship. And I think it's an incredible gift when you can go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's intimacy, right? It just is.
Yeah. And it feels good.
It feels good.
And that perspective, it works.
It works. So
really
that's
works.
the other thing, which is change is simple.
Yep.
It is. It is not hard. It's actually really simple. And in a relationship, it's the smallest little things that make the biggest difference, especially when your partner is like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I did that. Oh my gosh, I'd do anything to work on that. You're like, you're like a dog rolling over, being like, take me. Just take me. It's just as simple. It's so simple.
Yeah.
I'm going through this right now, Travis. I hope you don't mind me talking about it. We've been practicing it, and that's exactly what it is.
They're about to get married, so
premarital.
Well, that's so good that you're doing stuff ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
And I talk to my individual clients and relationship. I'm like, look, marriage basically isn't, you're not married once in one marriage. You're not. You go through a lot of different marriages in the context of your marriage. You do.
Yeah.
Because you change, your relationship changes, life changes. And the opportunity is to meet each other in each element of that marriage.
Right.
And you got to talk about it. You got to talk about what you need and what you don't need and what you needed yesterday and you don't need. You just do.
Right. It's work in some way. I've been with my husband since I was 18 and I'm 40. I mean, so over half my life now we have been together. And so to think of all the many stages of life of, being young, going to college, having children, buying house, and how our relationship has, up and down, but we've always been able to communicate, which is weird, not weird, but we are like what you were saying. We broke a chain, and our, his mom was married, several times. My dad was married many times. Like we both come from these homes of, and that was something that we really wanted. Yeah. And we work really hard, to work with each other and make sure that we can provide that home for our children. Yeah. And that they can see what that's like to live in a loving home and with loving parents and who communicate with each other. I think that is what I'm hearing from you. It's just like communicating and that how much power that is. Yeah. Just to be able to say to your partner, what you need or what you don't need, what you just said.
And for a lot of us too, it's I don't know what I want. Yeah. And I don't know what I need. And that's crazy making to both people. Yeah. It just is.
Yeah, it never goes anywhere.
It won't go. Well, where it can go is abandonment on both sides too. If I don't know what I want or where I want to go, then my partner feels abandoned and then they pull back from me and I feel abandoned. And it's just like, and then we blame each other. So it's, constantly asking yourself too, who am I and what do I want?
And remind me one more time, how long have you been doing your private practice?
let me think about that. So I had my company for 10 years, and in the company, doing the journey, they called me the hammer. Because I was the one that, like, we would do big retreats of like 300 people, right? And the people who struggled the most, those were mine. So like I was known for crawling over like stalls and bathrooms and picking locks on hotel rooms and chasing people out into the parking lot and getting on the hoods of their car being like, stop. And always inevitably, those people who had the hardest time in the beginning are the ones that always had the biggest breakthrough.
Yeah.
So I'll say that I'm going to include those years because it was just it's such an important part of my life and my
Sure.
experience. So I've been doing that for like, hold on. I'm going to say like that was probably 17 years.
Yeah. It's
And
a
my
long
private
time.
one-on-one practice has been about 3.
Yeah. And you can tell just the way you talk about it. I mean, you love it
I love it.
and you're good at it
I am.
and you
I-
know you're good.
Well, yeah.
You know?
I find people
What a great
fascinating.
confidence, you know?
And I don't have that confidence everywhere in my life.
No?
Let's
No?
be clear. Let's have my stuff too. But I find people fascinating.
Yeah.
And I know that when I'm working with a client, the truth is some shit comes out of my mouth that I'm like, where did that come from? That was really good. And I'm like, I wasn't mine.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like a lot of times it is. I feel like it's what's created in that moment and following that energy, and what needs to be said. And it works.
It's admirable. I mean, you're shining here sitting in front of us. Something happens over there in that chair. I don't know if it's the lighting or whatever, but when we start having these conversations, it's just, I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is what she's all about. This is her life. It's just, it's admirable. It's really interesting and cool to talk about. And you were talking about, sometimes it just comes through you, and you also write poetry. Is that right?
Well, it's funny because I would have never called it poetry ever. I just was writing these things, and I'm like, it's sort of cute. And I would post it, and it's sort of, and people were like, oh, I love your poetry. And I was like, what poetry? What are they talking about? And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, you guys, this isn't poetry. It's called dyslexia. So that's the way that I write. Like, I just don't see a lot of full paragraphs. I see shorter versions, and my mind sees things in clips. So a lot of times when I'm writing how I feel or what I think, it comes out. That's how it comes out. Wow. So I guess it reads like poetry, but it's not even mine, because it could be one of those things where I'm driving down the street and all of a sudden I just start thinking about something, and I pull over and grab a napkin and have to start writing because there's something, and I'm like, I have no idea where it comes from. All I know is it's fun.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever write lyrics, or is it just notes?
Just these musings. I call them
Musings.
my musings. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that cool?
I like it. I have a question. Going back when you were talking about, you had an eating disorder and then you broke the chain for how you were raised. What gave you, I guess, the push to get help and to change? Where did that
That's a good
come
question.
from?
There's a lot of people that I think felt the way that I felt growing up, which was like, how did I get here? These people are crazy. I don't belong here. And I'm not sure what to do. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. They're like, my house was crazy. So I always knew, I was like, there's just something that's just not working here for me. And then what happened for me is my eating disorder really spiraled out of control when I went to college. Because basically my whole life was controlled. I was told what to do and how to do it and how to smile and all that stuff. And then I go away to college and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I don't know how to be with people. I don't know how to decide where I want to go. It was awful. And so I was anorexic at first. I figured I'm going to do all of it, right? So like if that's my personality. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all the way. So first I was anorexic, and then I was like, this isn't very much fun. So then I went to bulimia, and then I was an overeater, and then I was bulimic again. But it was when I realized that I was killing myself, literally, because I would do it to an extent to make myself pass out. And I was passing out in random places. And I was just like, yeah, it hit me one day. I'm like, I think I'm really trying to kill myself, is what I think this is. And I went to my mom and I go, look, so I got this thing going on and this behavior, and I'm not quite sure how to change it. So do you know of like a book or a manual or something that someone can tell me how to change? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, this is happening and I don't know what to do. I ended up being hospitalized for about 5.5 weeks. And while I was hospitalized, it was fascinating seeing all the different people with their different struggles and where it all came from. And at one point, I sort of made a joke about it. And some of the doctors sort of rounded me up and put me in a chair in the center of the room and was like, young lady, you're in denial.
Wow.
And if you don't figure this out, you're going to die. I said, and let me share something else. I've been crying for a very long time. If I don't start laughing, I'm going to fucking die. So I need you to meet me halfway on this one. And it was a wake up call for me where I was like, my life can't be black and white anymore. It can't be. I have to find the gray in between. I have to start laughing at myself. I can't take this behavior so seriously that I'm going to kill myself over it. And I can't laugh at it too much that I'm going to kill myself over it too. Like, I just have to find that middle ground. And I also recognized that what I was eating was also affecting the eating disorder too. So for me, I grew up eating like steak and eggs and vegetables, and we didn't do a lot of sugars. So I'm 52. So sorry, I'm a lot older. Yeah. So I'm 52, and in the late 80s,
52 is the new 32.
Thank you. I knew I loved you. In the late 80s, there was this big craze of pulling fats out of your diet and eating no fats, right, and high carbs. So that's what we did. And I can specifically remember feeling my brain like it had ants on it after a while of eating this way. And the way I was eating with carbs actually turned into like a sugar addiction in my body. And it changed everything. So when I started doing the emotional work, along with noticing the foods that my body needed that might be different than somebody else's, is when everything started to change. But the best story of all is when I was pregnant. So I still struggled with it. I still was, working with it. It wasn't controlling my life anymore, but it still like would egg me a little bit, like, knocking at my door sometime. I'm like, what the is going on? And I woke up one day and I was like, where did it go? Like, when was the last time I thought about this? I'm like, oh my, when was it? I don't know. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was probably about 6 or 7 months pregnant, and I'm standing naked in the living room. And my then husband was like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, look at this. Do you understand what this is? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I'm not in control of this. I am not in control. This has a mind and a brilliance of its own, and the only thing that has ever gotten in the way of this body being absolutely amazing is me. And it was this, I'm like, oh, it's just been me. And everything shifted. I haven't struggled with eating issues at all. I eat what I want, when I want to eat it. But it was this awareness of I'm the only thing getting in the way of being healthy. Just me.
I love that. And you do work now with body image.
I do.
And I see some of your musings or poetry or whatever people want to call it, that you've written about body image and loving your body. I can't find it right now, but there was one I just had up here a second ago that it was like, my body is beautiful and yours is too. And I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful thing to say. And my question is, I think I have felt this way. I know many women feel this way. How do you get to that point? that you love your body no matter what, shape or size. We were just talking about Halloween was yesterday, and I ate too much candy, and I was
I just
joking
found
around
it.
with Corey, and I'm like, I feel like I have, my butt in the front, like my gut is so big feeling right now, and it's like, how do you recommend people, I guess, how do you work through that with them to love their body even on days that they feel, I don't hate myself I don't think I feel that bad about my body all the time, but there are days, like we all have good days and bad days, and how do you not get stuck in those bad days?
I think it's the relationship that you have with you,
Yeah.
and food too. There are very few days ever that I eat and don't and am mad at myself at what I can't tell you the last time.
Yeah.
I had chocolate last night, and I have to tell you, it was so good. But and I sit there with my kids. I'm like, slow down, and we're gonna eat this chocolate, and we're gonna enjoy this chocolate because it's good, and so is this salad, and so is this egg, and so is this, and I eat what I want to eat because I like the way it makes me feel. If I eat something that I don't like the way it makes me feel, I don't eat it. I just don't. And I don't do that to my kids either. I don't. So I got to a point, I think it's a combination of things. For one, being in a healthy relationship with yourself emotionally. If you're walking around with the baggage of shame, the baggage of guilt, the baggage of hurt, that's hard, So you're always going to be like, God, I've got this baggage, and I've got this hole in my heart, and I've got this hole in my stomach, and I just want to fill it up. Well, you need to meet that. You need to figure out what that is emotionally, because you're going to be trying to fill it up with anything and everything that you can. And I just did a workshop, and it's called Stop the Food Fight, Love Your Body. And one of the things that we talked about is, there is fight, flight, and freeze, right? So when you feel fear, and if all of our behavior, that's generally like more of like, and I don't want to say negative, more of like a constrictive behavior, or one that may hold you back, oftentimes is driven by fear. And when you're fearful, you go to fight, flight, or freeze, right? Well, they've added two other parts to that, which is feed and fuck.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So feed is food, alcohol, and drugs.
Yeah.
And fuck, we know what that is.
Yeah.
But these are all behaviors that have escalated big time in our culture today, big time, to mask over how we're feeling.
Yep.
And I look at that as, look, when you find that showing up in your life, have a party, man. This isn't a judgment time. This is party time for you to go, what am I not allowing myself to feel? That's all this is. So if I'm starting to eat more than I want to eat and I'm not feeling good, then roll back that camera. What were you feeling right before you ate that?
What a great
was
question.
Yeah.
And
There it is.
and be with that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes and I always share with people too, watch your judgments. And when you catch yourself judging, don't judge the judgment.
Yeah.
It is have another party. Oh, look at that. I'm like beating up on myself, but I caught it this time and I'm good, man. I caught it. Like, seriously, that's how you'll change your state. You start changing the pictures and the words in your mind, and everything is combined. So your emotions, your physical body, your spiritual body, your real everything. So it's just really being in a place of awareness and be aware of like, well, how do you feel right now? And you know what? Sometimes when I eat too much, I'm like, yeah, and I enjoyed every second of that, damn it.
Right. Well, I mean, I know sometimes I'm like, oh, I have ice cream for dinner tonight. You know what?
Yep.
I'm an adult. I can do that. It's okay every now and then to do that or whatever. And it felt good. And that's was my plan that night.
Yeah. And when it feels good, so there's lots of different theories out there, right?
I love that about what's the feeling. Is it making me feel good or is it making me feel bad?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you feel good, you're expansive, and when you feel bad, you're contractive. So think about it. If you're eating something and you feel crappy about it, your whole body's constricting in on it. So it's not going to function the best way it can. But if you're feeling good about what you're eating, then your body is more expansive, and it's actually going to do the job it needs to do for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not judging. There's so many things that I've experienced in the past 2.5 years that goes along that lines of constricting and then, letting go, right? that judging and being mindful and something. And I love how you talked about being in your living room, and like the only thing getting in the way of this body is me.
Yeah.
And when something happened, when I finally realized that, and I did some work, I got some outside help in this business, but I've been doing the same thing but it was very different, with, an eating disorder. It's very different now that I have this different mindset, and it's so nice to know we're not alone.
No.
And I'm listening to you, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on the right track, and oh yeah, I forgot that I heard that once before, and that, it's just nice to know that I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And that's, this is another reason why we're doing this podcast, is to just remind women out there that we're not alone, and that we go through these things, and it's so much more common than we know. But yeah, we can have this healthy relationship with food. And actually, right before you arrived, I responded to your email and said, I can't count me in for the 14th because I'll be there. I'll look for your invoice.
Yeah, we're gonna come.
Because I wanted to go last month, and I was so sad I couldn't make it. So I'm gonna be there. And one of my girls, she said she went. She said it was just fantastic. But Sylvie recommended, and I just loved reading the reviews. And I feel as if a door has been opened for me to see things that I didn't see before.
Mm-hmm.
And this evening was wonderful. Can you do it again? And I'm really excited. You feel smaller, happier, healthier, wealthier, right?
And I think we should
like
say
it.
we're talking about a workshop you're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
The workshop. Yep. The workshop is like Kristine just mentioned. Stop the food fight and love your body.
Mm-hmm. And it's stop the food fight, but it could be any fight that you have. That's just the easiest way to get somebody's attention, because a lot of people have issues with food.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said about the judgment. For me, I feel like sometimes you have the cycle, right, of whatever it is. It could be, any of those, things that you just said, food, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is, binge watching TV, anything, right? And then you get in that cycle of, oh, you're feeling bad, then you do this, then you feel shame, then you get the fuck it's because you've already done it. And then it's like this over and over and over again. And it's in that simple thing of just being aware and noticing when you're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much power in that.
Yeah.
Of just, I noticed that. And so next time you can notice it sooner and sooner and sooner. And then maybe you notice it before it happens. You know, it's so,
And then going back to relationship, because I am going into menopause. So, and perimenopause, I have to tell you, when I die and go up to heaven, because I'm going to heaven, I'm going to be like, look, I'm not sure what you were thinking when you designed this thing, but you got some flaws, and you got to explain this to me because it's just so not right. Because one of the things that happens is some of these crazy mood swings, crazy. And again, going back to relationship, when you have a relationship where there's trust in there and you're communicating about what's going on, like my boyfriend would be like, hey, are you just going dark today? Just want to check in. Is this a dark day? And it's the way you say it. Because if he was like, look, bitch, you're dark, then okay, then
you're gonna be a bitch
I'm
today.
gonna burn the house down and your ass is gonna be in the middle of it. But when it's like, hey, I just want to check in, are you having a dark day? When he does that for me, I'm like, yes, I didn't see it. Yes. And it can shift even a menopausal moment, where I'm like, taking a breath. And he's like, I can breathe too. Now, and it's just like that again is that relationship that's important to find.
Well, I like that too. My husband, I had a partial hysterectomy, so I don't have a period anymore, but I still have ovaries, so I still have all the hormones and all of that. And so he'll say to me sometimes, oh, are you having your fake period? And I'm like, first of all, that's not what it is. but now it's become this joke. And now I'm like, oh, okay. I can kind of check in with myself and be like, oh, I'm totally, and I can kind of check where I'm at and realize what am I projecting that I'm not meaning to? And it's okay. Sometimes we can feel bitchy and we can,
it's hormones.
Feel those way.
Or the lack thereof, or them going, I'm the same way. We call it the phantom period because I have an IUD.
Yeah.
But anyway, it still happens. There's hormones.
Yeah.
I would like to hear more about we kind of briefly talked about the parenting aspect of how you work with parents, because I'm a parent. So, I mean, tell me what kind of work you do with that.
So the way I work with parents, it's a little bit different, and you have to have some big hairy balls to come and work with me.
I was going to say, I'm not
just to
working
say.
It's a touchy thing.
It's a touchy thing.
Really?
And
I'm interested.
It's like kids, money, pet, those kinds of topics.
Yeah, because parents can come and be like, so I've got this problem with my kid, and my kid is this, and my kid is that, and they're doing this, and they're doing that, and there's something wrong with my kid. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about you. Because I honestly believe the parents create the pace and tempo of the home. And I just wrote something today, actually, and I posted it about teenagers because, and this will all come back around. I just recently went to my daughter just started high school, right? So they had a therapist come in to talk to the parents, which is one of the things that I love about our school systems around here is they're all about information. But the therapist came in and started off with like, hey, everybody, I just want to let you know I'm one of you. I've got an asshole for a kid too. And my kid is this and my kid is that. And this is the toughest time. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm out because that's bull. And that's a belief system. And that's a story that a lot of parents are telling each other. That's not true. And it could be like the terrible twos. No, they're not. And your teenagers are going to be awful and they're never, no, they're not. Honestly, the teenagers that you have are an amplification of everything that you have taught them and given them or not to this point. It's just now they're going to stand on a platform and they're going to put it in your face. So what you're getting is what you've either given to them or you haven't. What you've allowed them to get away with or what you haven't. A bottom line. So at the end of the day, there's a relationship here that has to be addressed. This isn't all about your child. It's not all about your husband. It's not all about your boss. It's not. Partially, but especially when it comes to our kids, your kids are a mirror reflection of you. Now, with that said, do some kids might have some other things going on? Yes, I'm talking about the stereotypical relationship, right? They're a mirror reflection of you. One of the things that I see happen is there are more adults on anti-anxiety and anti-depression medication today than ever before. So here's what I see happen, okay? So you can have, and I'll go to moms because, we're the problems that we create all the problems for our children. So I'm going to point to us. That's a sarcastic sort of true thing. So you can have a mom who's got anxiety and she keeps masking it with this medication and masking it with this medication. But she feels it underneath. It might not be exploding as much or anything like that, but she's masking it. And then what happens for their children is the kids feel it. But they can't name it because they're looking around and they're like, I don't see it, but I can certainly feel it. So who do you think they blame? Themselves.
Yeah.
They then go, oh, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And it's confusing. So then they start having behavior. Some of the behavior may be, please see me, please help me, please do something. But they don't know what the hell they're even feeling. So their behavior's all over the place and look at my damn kid.
Right.
And that happens a lot,
But do you think some things are just, just how the child is? Maybe, I'm a parent, but I have two boys who are very different.
Yep.
And I'm a pretty anxious person. I will be the first to admit that. And just high stress and worry and, all that. I try not to project that, intentionally,
Sure.
as much as I can. But I have one son who is totally laid back and actually is very much like my husband. And then I have another son that has, from the get-go, like never been a good sleeper, always anxious, always these certain ways. And it's like, did I cause this, or can it just be, are these genetic things that are passed on, or now there's also research that say that you can have anxiety passed down through your genetics. And I mean, what is your thoughts on those types of things? Is it always what we as parents give to them, or is some of that something that's just how they are?
We have to be careful with this one, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I mean, look, we're not professionals here, Corey and
No.
I. You are, but this is still your opinion.
but we still have to be
Right.
careful with this one. All of us do.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all of this information is such a blessing and such a curse. It is. So we could take information and then start beating the hell out of ourselves with it. And we don't want to do that.
Right.
You know, are some kids more high strung? Sure. Sure they are. So we're going to have to meet them differently than we're going to have to meet another child.
Right.
So when we're pregnant, if we're going through emotional stuff while we're pregnant, our kids are feeling that. They are. So with my second child, my ex-husband and I have now been divorced for about 3 years, but before that we were sort of separate in our own home, right? And struggling with some stuff. I was pissed. I mean, the truth is I was pissed. I was pissed with some work stuff too. And I wasn't doing my work on me. And I was not wanting to either because I was in a very pissy place. And I was like, screw all of you because I'm not doing the work that I know I should be doing. So there. And I was pissed when I was pregnant. I was with my second. Is he different because of it? I don't know. Maybe. You know, he had severe eczema. He had anaphylactic allergies. You know, he has more fear than my first. Is it because of how I was feeling when I was pregnant? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Right. Could be any number of things, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do I feel bad about that? Yeah, I do. Especially because I had the tools at the time and I chose not to use them. But is there a possibility that he was feeling like, because all emotions have a chemical component, it's how you feel it, right? Was he getting flushed with my anger? Damn right he was. Of course he was.
Well,
You know,
I never have considered
That's
that.
an interesting way. Yeah.
very
I've
possible,
heard
right?
about it.
Sure.
And that's how
Possible.
these genetic line, it's, I guess, would be kind of something like that of, you're passing it down from generation to generation in that way.
well, stress.
Uh-huh.
If you're feeling stress, is your kid going to feel that? Sure. Of course. That's a hormone.
Yeah,
You've got a
right.
stress hormone flowing through your body while you're pregnant. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Are there going to be things out of your control?
Right.
Yes. And even today, like my husband loses his job. Is that stressful? Yes.
Right.
You know, or, my mother passed away, not mine, but, my mother passed away and it's stressful. Is it? Yes. Are you doing anything to cause your child harm? No. And here's the other thing that I've come to, this is the gem of the gem, okay? You never know what's going to affect somebody. You just don't. And it's really none of your business either. So you need to get out of that way. And here's how I know that. I use this example so often. Working with a young woman, she was in her mid-30s, had massive abandonment issues, terrified to be in a relationship, terrified to do so many things. And this poor thing was just so afraid, right? Well, when we went back into her emotions and the crystallizing moment, here's the crystallizing moment. She was 2 years old. She's in the grocery store and she's standing in the aisle, right? And you're 2. So what are you, like a foot tall? Maybe a little, you know what I mean? You're teeny.
Yeah.
And those are tall aisles and they're long. So think about that for a minute, what that would feel like to somebody so little. It would feel like those things go on and are towering over you, right? And she's standing there and she's looking at everything. And all of a sudden she turns for her mom and her mom's gone. And she was like, and the terror just flushed through her. So it's a chemical, right? So all this terror is flushing through this kid's body and she collapsed in on herself. Her mom was just on the end. She's like, right here. How long was her mom gone? 10 seconds? Why did her particular body hold on to that particular moment? I don't know.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
interesting because I mean, I'm
Crystallizing
sure that's happened to
moments.
many people. And why did they
Yes.
not get affected by it? Or why do some people go through very tragic things
That's
and
right.
somehow, doesn't affect them the same way as something as small as losing your mom in the grocery store can affect someone else.
That's right.
So we're all different.
That concept of that stamp in the mind.
Yeah.
And then our mind it ruminates or it comes back to, but there's other ones that
And it's in the body too.
in the
So
body
when we get
too.
triggered, it's an emotional, physical response, right? So like for this woman,
Yeah,
she could be
whoa.
with a man having a conversation.
my
And if he
God.
turned around for a minute and just looked in the other direction because he heard something, she feels left. Oh, you just left me.
Wow.
Wow.
That quick.
Yep.
It's not her mind that goes there.
It's the body.
It's the body that goes, terror.
Wow.
So why? I don't know why.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just know it's none of my business to try to figure out why. It's my business to be with what is.
Mm.
And as parents, it's our business to be with what is.
And so you mean, how do you cope with what is?
How do you be with what is? You know, like what does each kid need to receive from you? How does that kiddo need to be heard and seen? And how does that kiddo need to be guided differently? They're all different. They just are, you know? And how do we be with them without judging them or judging ourselves? Because the judgment that we can have of ourselves and our children or the situation creates another barrier.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Damn judgment.
Damn it.
Always
Damn it.
fucking stuff up. That
Totally.
judgment.
And we're not aware that we're doing it.
Mm.
But we can feel it and our kids can feel it, but they don't know what they're feeling and you don't know what you're feeling, you know? So it's a matter of like, look, are you happy as a mom? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling confident? Do you love this moment? Because if you are, then your parenting is going to be stellar, period. And the way your kids show up and how you perceive them and showing up is going to be pretty fucking amazing. It just is. If you're getting stressed out on that parenting, then we need to look at that. And we need to find the resources for you so that you're not stressed out, so that you can meet that child exactly where they are.
Love it. Love it. I think I read something else on your website that was about, parents' identity being tied to their children.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see, I feel like even for me as a parent and seeing, I've recognized that in myself at times.
Sure.
And I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? This isn't about me. Or, who cares if you go out in mismatched clothes? That doesn't make me a bad parent. But for a while there, I caught myself in being like, oh, well, you can't wear that because
Right.
what will people think of me and how I'm mothering you? And I'm just curious if, obviously this is something, that happens quite often. I'm
Like
assuming.
100% of the time? Seriously,
Yeah.
it's 100% of the time. It just is. We project our stuff to everybody, especially the people we love the most. We do. It's the safest place to do it.
Yep.
So we do.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people come there like, what's my life's purpose? How do I find my life's purpose? Is it to be the beacon of light in the shadows for people around? I'm like, no, your life's purpose is Mother Teresa had this quote. It's my favorite. You want to save the world? Go home. And your life's purpose is to just rediscover the truth of who you are, the way you were born. So when you think about your children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have this baby and they hand you this baby when they're born, right? And you look at this baby and everybody, whether it's your child or not, you're going to look at this baby and you go, oh, like, what is that feeling? It's this feeling of like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming and it is
know.
beautiful. Well, you can see it with other kids too.
Emotional.
Totally, but what are you emotional about? What's the feeling that you're feeling right now?
I think it's like that.
What?
Whatever that is.
What is that?
I guess that it's this like overwhelming joy, wonder, like this magnificent thing.
But the only way that you can be responding to it right now is if you know what that is within you. And you do. It's in you. If it wasn't in you, you couldn't see it, feel it, or receive it. So it is the truth of you. And your purpose is to remember that and get back to that. So that's what so much of this is being in the moment all the time. Not from judgment, but from awareness and expansion. And that brings you back home. It just does.
Brings you back home.
Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. You have given us so many beautiful things to think about. And
That was something else.
yeah.
What's going on with me? We were passing out candy last night.
Are you having your phantom period?
Looked so good at the door, passing out the candy.
Oh, honey, you're so cute.
I was like, hey, it was so funny. He goes, oh, this is because there's kids around. It's so funny.
Her hormones are knocking at the door.
Anyway, yeah, this has been good. This is great. This has been
Thank
wonderful.
you so much, Christine.
Thank you,
Really,
Kristine.
thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you. I love talking about this stuff. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Well, and I just appreciate your openness. You know, I mean, sitting here, like Corey said, I don't know if it's the light or what, but you have a light, and I'm very grateful that you're in this world to
Aw,
share that with other
thanks.
people.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
And for our listeners out there, if you're interested in Kristine's workshop, Stop the Food Fight, Love Your Body, you can go to KristineLackey.com
We'll include
/ events. We'll include it on our website there. And then you can also go to untangledmom.com, www.untangledmom.com. That will also be on the website. You can read more about Kristine's musings there on Untangled Mom too. I think listeners will really enjoy that.
Yeah, thank you so
Got
much,
anything else for us?
Christine.
Thank you so much. And yeah,
This is beautiful.
hopefully
Yeah.
we can have you back on again.
Sure.
Yeah, and we're gonna
anytime.
go to your workshop, and
Yay.
so we'll talk about it, and I'm sure it's gonna be awesome because today was awesome. So if this was just a taste, and I can't wait to learn more.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty.
That's a wrap.
If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments, to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.